people that you're helping from a life coach perspective as a counselor at a local rehab center for addiction. Maybe some of these guys are coming out of prison or have been in prison.
Yeah.
How do you help them get into this kind of system?
Greg, to be quite honest with you, it's brutal.
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
We have Patrick Jones with us. He's a counselor at a rehabilitation center. Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Greg, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Your focus is trying to help people become reintegrated into the workforce, giving them opportunities to plug back into society. Is that kind of the way, kind of what you do for people in one aspect of what you do?
I think that's a big part of it, because a lot of people will take identity in what they do for a living. And that's not the only identity that people gravitate towards. For the most recent part of the past couple of years, I've worked primarily with men. And a lot of times men can be marginalized within the capacity of what income they're bringing in.
Okay.
And how they're bringing in that income.
Yes. So men are typically seen in our society as the provider,
The breadwinner.
financially, the
Yeah.
breadwinner.
Yeah, the head of household. And those are challenges for individuals that have something that's impacted, say, their background check. And so it's deeper than that, though. There's a deeper dilemma. The depth of their challenges is more than that topic, but that's where their focal point is.
Sure.
Because in my training highlights psychologists such as Abraham Maslow, noting the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Yep.
But getting back to that PhD of School of Hard Knocks that some people come from.
Why don't we time out right there?
Sure.
And go back and know a little bit about you.
A little bit about my background.
About you.
Well,
why do you do this?
Yeah.
What do you have inside you that causes you to do this? Let's take it maybe from high school through why you chose to do what you do.
Well, from high school, I knew that I had obstacles to hurdle.
Okay.
I knew
just
that
a couple of
relocating, a lot of relocation.
Okay. Because you were an Army kid?
A lot of my family's work history changed. My dad did not have as much of an academic background as me. He started his family at an earlier age.
Okay.
So he started as a grocery store manager in Southern California. And my mom was a teacher, and an award-winning teacher. As I had the opportunity to enter into some desired schools of mine at a young age, I recognized that even though I liked athletics, I wasn't very good at it. So I had enough sense to know that I needed to make a living.
Right. Yes. So that wasn't your skill set. That wasn't your gifts and abilities. You found your gifts and abilities.
I was more of a practice squad guy. I helped the big players be even better. And that led me to being in a coaching capacity. And I think there's something very neat about sports today. We're seeing younger coaches. And
absolutely.
I don't know what that's about, but I think that sends something about the trend of society. Is we, in all of the online sources that we have, and all the trends of today, is that we know we need good teaching. we know that there are successful people out there that can provide us with better knowledge.
Mm-hmm. There's an old saying that if you can't do, go and teach.
Yeah. It's even
But
better when someone has done and are also able to teach from that.
right. And what's funny to me is what you just said is maybe we realize that our strength is teaching, that it's not that we're not good enough to do the other, but that we're realizing at a younger age that we can help others succeed through coaching and teaching.
Where I gained a lot of insight was learning about honing the skills of strategy. My parents raised me with learning how to play chess. And I started recognizing that all of these individuals that I admired with their physicality had an inseparable cognitive ability. Because from my standpoint, uh, the physicality and cognitions are interdependent.
So you can be big and not very mentally adept and not achieve very much, or you can be the mind not lining up with the physicality.
There's no cookie cutter mold to impose on it. But when I'm talking to my guys that want to work, I try to talk up how there is what our occupational researchers will phrase as the industrial athlete. And so I hate to break it to all the D1 players out there, but not everyone's going to make it to the professional league. And
big percentage won't.
Right. Fortunately, D1 players can now get paid. And I think that's remarkable. But I think one of the talking points is logistics is a big part of society now. And if you've got a guy that understands logistics and strength and lifting, then you have someone that can run a warehouse. And that's what the occupational researchers call the industrial athlete. So I guess we're kind of going a couple different directions with this. What I'm trying to be attentive to is that even though guys are saying, I need to bring in income and I need a competitive wage and I need a job, the mentoring capacity of that is, where is your sense of direction? What do you attribute your ambitions towards? And can we detach from the microcosm just directly in front of us and detach from that for just a moment to see the macrocosm, to see a bigger picture? And this is built within the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is built into much teachings of faith. This is a part of major programs. If a person can understand and recognize the benefits of being part of something greater than themselves, that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's well represented in a lot of different capacities.
Right. Yeah, and that's why we're having people on our podcast from anywhere from the homeless fellow to the state elected official and everybody in between, because everybody contributes to society. If they realize it or not, they are contributing, willingly or not, to how we live, because we're all intertwined at some point. So you're helping people find what they can connect to.
Can we get back to the beefy fitness guy for a moment?
Sure.
How it's inseparable from being physically fit. I just find that fitness is a great model, a great example for how to get things done, to exercise a sense of initiative and to complete tasks. Because there could be that flaw, that thought in error, that's just a meathead. That's just a beefy guy. It takes a discipline for a guy to apply himself to go to the gym when he doesn't necessarily feel like it. He'll be glad he did that afterwards. But to do those things consistently and regularly, that's a guy that understands solid, consistent work.
Yeah. And he has to have a plan
Yeah.
that will work.
And one of the other teachable moments is just because something may be perceived as simple, perhaps he's not regarded as like a computer programmer. So his approach to the work could be critiqued as, oh, that's simple. Just because something may be perceived as simple doesn't necessarily make it easy. And that's the humbling part of it. And as someone that I've been able to learn from professional athletes in my upbringing in my college years, I've met a great amount of notable individuals, and I've been fortunate to have that influence, because I don't think I'd be where I am today if I didn't learn from some strong men ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I learned about business management styles. Some styles of business management is, if I want this done right, I've got to do it myself.
Don't get a whole lot done.
Well, the other style would be to delegate tasks. If I'm confident that I've trained that individual to do that task, then I can delegate that task to that person.
Yes. So a plan with a system and having people is kind of like being the athlete that has a plan and goes and does. And he might have different body parts that he works those days, representing the people that are working for him to achieve his overall goal.
Yes, that's teamwork.
It is.
And that's strategy.
It is.
One of the third management styles that has been remarkable for me to learn from is, and it's more of an extreme or an intense approach. The extremeness is, I'm going to train this up and coming professionals so well that I'm going to train myself out of a job. This person's actually going to fill my shoes and take my place.
Yes.
And that's just a remarkable strategy. And it does take a certain level of extremeness to approach training that way. And that takes time. That's not going to be instant gratification. That's not paralleling where society is at today.
What is instant gratification?
It's trying to resolve everything with technology. And please don't get me wrong, I have a lot of technology work history. But if the notion is, if I just press on that app on my phone and I can resolve this dilemma, we've seen that. On a side note, there was a youngster noted on the public news feed that got a hold of dad's phone at 1 a.m. and the camera in that driveway seen car after car pass by, and he had ordered like $1,000 of like delivery food. Just in one night. Yeah. So that's kind of baffling, but I think the even sadder part of it is how possible that is in all of our minds of just selecting an app here and an app there, and all of a sudden $1,000 of food has been delivered to a home in one night. And the sad part of that is that's how plausible that is for many people's perspective. That's the world that we live in. We live in on an economic and workforce type of perspective. We live in a world of EFTs, which is electronic funds transfers. And that kind of flies in the face of some teachings from financial professionals of like an envelope method, where like when that cash is gone, we can't go out to eat anymore because that cash in that envelope is gone.
Right. Yes.
So I think we've been losing sight of that in society. And I think there's also been, and this is from my work history for many years, there has been a lack of confidence with some of the advocacy avenues. Thinking that if I don't have a stellar resume that is flawless, then I'm not going to have a chance. But the other humbling part to all of that is a person could look all well and good on paper, But once you start to work with that individual or try to see their getting things done, their sense of initiative or follow through, from a behavioral health standpoint, there's a lot of different conditions out there. One in particular, and this is evidence-based supported, is borderline personality disorder. And this is from my discipline of study, is researching these things. There can be all of these elaborate plans, but then what's lacking is the ability to have follow through, to execute the task and to get it done.
Right.
And I would say that a lot of my observations over the years is noting these elaborate strategies of how to get something done. Because there's, in a work setting, there could be tons of different ideas and strategies on how to complete something. Who's going to
Implement it?
Who's going to implement it? Who's prepared to be in the grind?
Yeah. And I know who I am, and I am absolutely a visionary that needs implementers. And I have a board of advisors above me that I bounce ideas off. How should we do this? What should we be doing now? How do we input this into our entrepreneurial operating system? What are these KPIs that we need to have? And I propose that if we had more individuals knowing what their purpose is, and they strategically put themselves into these teams, might they be a visionary or an implementer or a support staff or whatever that is, and they understood who they were, and they realized they were part of something bigger, like you talked about earlier, and they lived in their lane and they were developed, and then they come to a realization that, yes, well, that was good for that season, and they bought into being trained up, then maybe they could work better and this whole system would work better.
What I'm hearing from your description of those events is everyone involved in that season or chapter, they became acquainted with solidarity.
That's right.
And the value of that, that's a lesson that they can take to the bank.
Yes.
Because once things can be contagious and it can be helpful. It doesn't necessarily have to be pathologic or problematic.
Right.
How contagious that solidarity part, now that they've become familiar with it, they've learned what it's like to win.
Right.
And I think that we have some deficits in society to where people may identify in a self-critical way. And I think I keep going back to the fitness gym model because I think it teaches us so much. When you've got a bunch of 200 plus muscle bound weightlifters in the gym, and they see this 115 pound soaking wet kid coming into the gym wanting to beef up, there's a certain culture in the gym. And I know that I'm just like a psychology, behavioral health guy, but the sports psychology of the gym is remarkable because these beefy guys are saying, hey, leave that 115 pound soaking wet kid alone. Why? Because he's trying to better himself.
Yeah.
Everyone in the gym's called bro. So all of a sudden, like that's just been, that simplified the process. He's one of us. He's a bro.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a 115 pound bro.
Yeah. Soaking wet bro. Right. Like, cause he's not got a lot of size to him.
Right.
But he's got that
willingness.
He's got the willingness. He's exercising his desire and his initiative to get out of the video gaming console and to tend to his physical health.
Right.
But those principles transcend just lifting dumbbells in the gym. It develops that ability to accomplish things. And when a team gets collected with all those types of individuals, and you mix into that cooperation and the solidarity, they're getting enormous amounts of accomplishments, and then that yields residuals.
Right. Yeah, I call it shared energy.
Yeah, that's the gym. Because you got guys spotting for another dude lifting or something, all of a sudden they're creating a culture that facilitates progress.
So back to these people that you're helping from a life coach perspective as a counselor at a local rehab center for addiction. Maybe some of these guys are coming out of prison or have been in prison.
Yeah.
How do you help them get into this kind of system?
Greg, to be quite honest with you, it's brutal. It's brutal because everyone's on the defense and there's a lot of mixed emotions.
So these people that are coming to you that are wanting help are on the defense.
Yes.
You're trying to help them make a life plan, and they're telling you what?
They're telling me one of two things. You don't know me, or let me tell you how it is on the streets. And that.
So they're telling you you don't know what you're talking about, that they know more about what reality is than you because they have their past history of their reality, and they're not able or willing to accept the reality that you're wanting to give them.
There's a differences of opinions and a supposed differences of perspectives. You don't know what I've encountered in life. You don't know my obstacles. And how is this supposed to help me?
So you let them share their obstacles with you?
Yes. The approach.
Are there normally a lot of different obstacles that you've never seen as you tried to help people in the past with this new guy?
Well, this is if they're willing to share because stonewalling isn't all that uncommon or deflecting. But if we're really prepared to problem solve, we've got to eliminate some of the flawed thinking. One of those thinking flaws could be privilege. And I think that one of the big dilemmas is when people that are on the defense see someone of accomplishment or someone in authority or some sort of established role. The dilemma is they think that that person has had a walk in the park.
There's dog poop in that park.
Yeah.
I can tell you from my life.
Exactly.
And I've stepped in a whole lot of it because I might not have had the right person in my corner. I might not have had that life experience. And life experiences, they teach lessons.
And a lot of my guys are not too interested on how a person can look on paper. They want to hear those lived experience moments. They want to hear about how, a person was able to complete difficult tasks, to move a whole storage unit with one U-Haul all in one day, the practical types of problem solving that's down to the nitty gritty of day-to-day living. How a guy has been evicted from his living situation and he found to get back on his 2 feet. How, bankruptcies were encountered, broken relationships, failure after failure after failure. They want to learn about those things. Exactly. How is that person progressing when they've encountered so many difficulties? And in another life of mine, or just in a previous era, I did get to train with medics and helicopters, and that was a teachable moment for me. But things like that is what people want to hear. It's like you actually were maybe quote unquote boots on the ground, like you were in the trenches in some capacity. And from my university experiences, some of this is a little bit startling to hear, or it's a little bit out there. Sometimes the things that, is thought provoking has to grab someone's attention. I relayed what I had heard from a big public figure in a university setting. And the statement went, it's better to be an effective performing private than a poor performing general.
For sure. A lot of
Yeah.
people get hurt if you're a poor performing general.
But my guys like to hear that. My guys like, okay, so there's a purpose for the entry level worker. There's a purpose for someone that's starting back from point A. You know, there's opportunity still, and there's value for where I'm coming from. And from my position, I'll have someone walk up to my desk and they'll think maybe all sorts of things. I have a plexiglass basketball hoop in my office, and I have Nikes and Adidas, and I have cleats on my wall. And it's there to send a culture. Environmental wellness can send a big message to individuals. And so when people are able to ease the tensions just from being near my office setting, that helps to generate a conversation. And that conversation is don't judge a book by its cover. You know, just because you see someone that's had a lot of discipline of study doesn't mean that we don't like to have fun, or we ignore the benefits of recreation. And it's not all grunt work, because people need incentives. They need to know. It gets back to their sense of direction and their purpose-driven lives. They need to know that all of their work is leading up to something, because otherwise they feel like they're spinning their wheels.
Something I heard just a moment ago is some people can be walls up, combative, not wanting help from a person that's wanting to help them.
Mm-hmm.
I've not found that to be beneficial in my life when I was that person. And we need to help people know that just because they know what they've been through and who they are on the inside doesn't mean that that's who they need to continue being. And people like you want to get into their corner if they will share with you what their reality is, share with you how they can't do in their own mind. But because if they would share with you their perspective of themselves, you could probably tell them you're no different than a lot of people that I've helped.
They get to voice their ambitions. It's like scripture talks about this, the rudder on a ship. When they voice what their ambitions are, what their desires are, that gets things generated and it gets them moving. It can even lead them to what might be referred to as a self-fulfilling prophecy, where they put it out there in the atmosphere and then things start to happen.
And that statement is received by Christians and these people that worship the universe and the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are spiritually based, different perspectives of what God is, but they call it manifestation in that other realm.
It may be differences in semantics, but people can recognize outcomes when they see them.
That's right. So if this person comes to you and they're open about what their challenge is, and then they tell you what they want, then maybe you can help them build that roadmap.
Yeah, in some subtle ways. The art of counseling is to help people develop their pathway without seemingly being told.
Right.
Did
I say tell them how to do it?
No, building the roadmap. And
yes.
The value is when there's improved communication. And part of the profession is modeling that improved communication. But so many times my guys will talk about the obstacles, but one of them is just give me a chance and I show you what I can do. And when you encounter a Rudy, like from Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, one of the coolest movies on football, because this was a practice squad guy, you know, that he would grind day in and day out to make the big players even better. And then if that can be fostered with individuals that maybe have hit rock bottom, hey, there's a place for the Rudies of the world also. And it's not that bad. It's actually a pathway that can lead to some extraordinary results. And that's also something I've learned from a lot of the life coaches that I followed over the years, that I found to be a tremendous help to society, is fostering that ambition, the sense of reach out for things that are seemingly not attainable. And that speaks to progress and success that is maybe not properly seen through the lenses of the community or from the people that I try to serve to the best of my ability. When they face hardships, the lens that they're looking through of life, maybe it's been obscured. And so the thought process is that success is exclusive only to some. And I'll share this on more than one occasion with my people. If they find that life has maybe issued them these rose-colored lenses that's obscuring their vision, and then some guy comes alongside with, say, a pair of Oakleys or something, hey, try these on. And then all of a sudden, they're able to think outside of those previous parameters. Then what's to stop them from taking those rose-colored lenses and just tossing them? Because what that helps to generate is a sense of initiative, that can-do spirit, but to also be a visionary. That's powerful. It's humbling and it's powerful. And when there's a connection made with that, some of the faith-based psychologists that I follow, Dr. Townsend and Dr. Cloud of Southern California, they've written the book on safe people and on boundaries. And they go so far as to say that when a strong connection is made between people, that people can experience God in an even more complete way. It speaks to what Maslow said was self-actualization. It's the human condition in some of the most complex and remarkable forms. And when people are able to get past just needing basic supplies, water and electricity and shelter and food and things, and then they find like there's a bond, then that's motivating to them. That helps reestablish their sense of direction and their hope.
I've got a question about Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy. In my life, it worked different. Mm-hmm. In my life, when I came to the place of self-actualization, all that other stuff was taken care of immediately. It wasn't that I needed to strive for those basic needs anymore. Those basic needs were received through that. It flipped itself.
You knew the process. You knew the process forward and backwards. And as a military brat, I'm not military, so I'm not going to falsely represent myself, but I've had some amazing friends in the military. I've been privileged for that. But what you'll learn from such individuals as Marines, they learn it forwards and backwards, and that's for a purpose.
Yeah.
Because they've got to have that detail, and that's powerful.
Or maybe I had reached the pinnacle and received self-actualization to a certain degree, and then it opened it up to the upside of all of those things working so much better in my life.
You found a portal.
And that's what we're trying to give to our audience. That's why you were here today, is because we love to love people. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Craig, for having me.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?